My name is Mike Ross. I have an investment advisory firm called Lattice Wealth Management, but I want to start this with a story about Ted and Alice and Jack and Jill. Ted and Alice have been married 40 years. They live in Nevada. Jack and Jill are their two kids. They're adult kids. Jack is now a state employee living in Sacramento. Jill is a teacher in Walnut Creek. Sadly, Ted passed away about 5 years ago, but in the last 5 years of his life, he spent a lot of time going over with Alice all of their investments and insurance stuff. And during that time frame, Alice would listen politely and would smile and maybe ask a few questions just to make sure that he knew that she was kind of picking it up. This is the traditional situation, which is not 100% of the case, but is 75% of the cases where the gentleman has handled this stuff throughout the years. So she would ask questions. She would make sure she felt like she was engaged, but really it was kind of out of her wheelhouse. It wasn't something she lived to work on. She was just listening and taking care of things. So Jack and Jill came home for Christmas, and they were with Mom during the holidays, and they both realized that she was kind of losing some of her edge. She was frail, looked like she hadn't eaten as much as she should be eating, and she was forgetful. After the holidays, Jack and Jill had a conversation. Now remember, Jack has a full-time job in Sacramento. Jill's in Walnut Creek. My observation over the years is, with rare exceptions, and I'm going to mention some exceptions as I talk through this, the daughter is the caregiver. It was Jill's job to kind of engage on these kinds of things because guys in many cases are slugs around this stuff. The circumstances were that Jill nor Jack knew their CPA. They didn't even know if they had a financial advisor. There was never any contact. They barely knew the estate attorney. There was no real knowledge there. And like many, many families, parents and kids don't communicate about this stuff. I've heard the excuses, they'll just ask for more money when parents are talking about trying to include their kids in conversations. Or the kids, and I got to fight this with my daughter sometimes, they don't want to hear about this stuff. Oh, I don't want to know about it. The fact of the matter is, and I'll summarize this story with my own, I'm having lunch with a client down in Westlake Village last month. And this is a client who last year I spent hours with her and her estate planning attorney trying to update her trust after her husband passed away. And during that lunch she said, and I quote, "My daughter doesn't trust you and she thinks you're ripping me off." Now, I've tried to schedule a meeting with the daughter. That'll eventually happen, and we'll probably solve that problem, but that is what I think you guys as a group face, is some dysfunction around investments and things like that, and that leads to my point. How am I going to pay for this?